I think everybody always wants to make the right decision. I believe that's probably one of the biggest things that holds us back as humans from truly progressing to our true potential is we want to make the right decision. In the desire to make the right decision, we hesitate, we hold ourselves back, and all that hesitation breeds doubt. Doubt breeds fear, fear breeds more hesitation, breeds more inaction.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to one belief that you have the power within to create everything you seek. So if you are ready to step into a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with me. I'm your host, Rudi Riekstins, and this is the Empowered Life. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I'm your host, and today we are joined by Zander Fryer, the founder and CEO of High Impact Coaching. After walking away from a successful corporate career at just 27 years old, Zander built a multi-million-dollar coaching company, helping coaches and entrepreneurs turn their expertise into profitable, purpose-driven businesses. Today, we're going to dive in and speak all things about leaping from comfort to your calling and what it really takes to build impact at scale and the inner game behind creating a business that changes lives. This is a conversation that speaks deeply and profoundly to my heart, and I know it is going to yours too. So sit back, get a cup of coffee, and join us. Zander, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, man. I appreciate having you here.
Yeah, Rudy, thanks for having me, and man, I really appreciate it.
I want to give the audience just some context because we were chatting right before we hit record, and we're speaking today in how do you pivot from what the world has told you you should do to who you really have come here to be, and what do you want to do and how you can produce tremendous success from doing it. And I just want the audience to know that you live permanently in Costa Rica. You are living in a place where people spend a week or two a year because
Yeah.
they live their lives in the hustle and in the grind so they can go away for a week and experience what is your everyday. And you've been able to build a multi-million dollar, and you can correct me, but in excess of $20 million in just this business alone.
Yeah.
And you've done it beautifully from Costa Rica with your gorgeous wife, with a beautiful life. And so I would love to start off today by just asking you, so many of us find ourselves in the place that you were at. Most of us find it at 20, 40, 50 years old. You did it at 27. You were in corporate America. You were successful, quote unquote, but something was missing. What was that moment that really defined the decision of, I cannot live this way and I'm going to do something really drastic and different?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of multiple things. I always tell people it was like everybody's always asks, was it a buildup and then eventually like an overflow, or was it just like one moment that kind of triggered it all? And it was kind of like a balloon to me. It was like this buildup of pressure, and then there was just a couple of things that just pricked the balloon and caused it to pop, and everything changed for me. One of them was at a young age, at the age of 27, my best friend committed suicide. When I lost AJ, this was a buddy of mine, basically a brother of mine. I'd known him since I was 7 years old. I played soccer and baseball with him. He introduced me to my first girlfriend. When we finished high school, he joined the Marines. I joined Air Force ROTC, and we were always close. And after he got done in the military, he suffered from PTSD and addictive tendencies for a while. And he made it through fine until one day he didn't. And he just found that he couldn't handle the world anymore. And that was it. And I remember waking up after losing AJ, and I guess my entire idea of what this world was supposed to be just completely changed. I couldn't understand how somebody who was, to me, he was like a mentor to me. He was like a brother. He was always the light, always the joy, always the fun. And I was like, I don't understand how this world could lose someone like that. That just logically didn't make sense to me. And it kind of led me down this path of, when you're a kid in your mid 20s, facing mortality like that, it forces you to start to ask the questions of like, well, you know, what am I doing? What is the purpose of life? Why am I actually here? What if I were to die tomorrow? Would I be happy with everything that I've done? Would I be okay with the life that I've lived? And when you start to reflect on the fact that it sounds a little bit morbid, but we're all going to die, right? There's a famous quote in the book Tuesdays with Morrie where he says, everybody knows that they're going to die at some point, but nobody actually accepts that they're going to die. And for me, I was kind of forced to face that at a young age. And that was a really eye opening moment for me. And I started to think very intentionally about what actions I was taking and how I was spending my time because I started to realize quite quickly, I was an engineer by trade. I started to realize quite quickly there's a finite amount of moments that I'm going to have on this earth. Am I spending them the way that I want to actually be spending them? And so that was one of the biggest things for me that made me start to realize it. Then I had a conversation with a mentor of mine. At this point, I was working at Cisco Systems as a systems engineer. I was making good money. I was making $200,000 a year as a kid in his mid to late 20s, which is pretty unheard of. I was definitely like the most successful person in my friend group. And I was lucky enough at a young age from because of the Air Force to learn always have a mentor, always have people because you can't see your own blind spots, always have people looking out for your best interests that are above you or beyond you or doing things that you want to do at some point. And I had a mentor of mine, his name was John, and we were out at dinner one day and kind of reflecting on where I was, and he just asked me a life-changing question. He said, "What would you do if you couldn't fail?" And I was like, "Oh, that's it's tough, but easy at the same time." I'd mentor people. I'd just help people full time. I don't know what that means, but when I was in the Air Force, I got to lead people, I got to mentor, I got to help people earlier in their career than me. And that was what I loved to do. That's when I really fell in love with leadership and mentorship and frankly coaching. And he said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I said, "Well, I've got this amazing career, I'm making great money, I've got this path laid out ahead of me." And he said, "Xander, just because you've got a path, does that mean you should walk it? Just because you're good at something, does that mean that you should do it?" And he goes, "Do you know the difference between me and you?" I said, "Well," he was a $1 million entrepreneur at the time. I was like, "Well, you make a shit ton more money than I do." And he just goes, "Well, that, but you have to realize I'm living my dream and you're just dreaming your dream. And the difference between you and me is I actually take action on the things that lead me toward the life I actually want to have. You're making excuses for why you're staying on the direction and the path that you're on." He saw straight through, like, the cocky, overconfident ego of this kid and just cut through it like a knife to point out, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's all bullshit." And he said, "Xander, when you get to my age, you learn something. Every moment you live is either on purpose or off purpose, and every moment off purpose is a moment wasted.
Mm.
You can never get it back." And I think that conversation was a Saturday night. That Sunday, I could not stop thinking about that. I couldn't talk to anybody. I didn't do anything. I just could not stop thinking about every moment off purpose is a moment wasted. And then that Monday rolled around and it was 8 a.m. and I jumped on my engineering call with the engineering team. And by the end of that meeting, I can't stop thinking I'm never going to get that hour back. And then 9 to 10 rolls around and it's the sales huddle. And by the end of that, I'm thinking I'm never going to get that hour back. Then it was the Disney meeting. I'm never going to get that hour back. Then it was the NBC meeting. I'm never going to get that hour back. By the end of the morning, I'm just thinking, I just wasted an entire morning of my life doing shit that just doesn't fucking matter to me. And so I literally picked up the phone, I called my manager and I said, "Frank, I quit." And that was it. That was the end. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what came next, but it was just, I'm not going to spend any more time wasting it doing something I know is not me.
So now looking back at what it looks like to make a dramatic shift in life, I'm curious what your vantage point is on what you think it is that keeps people so addicted to certainty, because so many people stay in an uncomfortable situation or they stay in a soul sucking job. We call them golden handcuffs or bad
Yeah.
marriages, but people stay there because it's predictable. And the science tells us that that is, in and of itself, an addiction.
Yep.
Why do you see so many people are stuck? And how do we shift them?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. And to your point, it's our brain, right? Our brain is hardwired to keep us safe, frankly, right? So the animalistic parts of our brains were 5 times more likely to be programmed by negative than by positive experiences. And it's to keep ourselves evolutionarily to keep us alive, right? And so when you look at it, you know the old saying, we prefer the devil we know to the heaven we don't. So evolutionarily, if you think of it, if you're in a, I don't know, a small tribe of people, well, if you don't know what's beyond that ridge, you don't go beyond that ridge because there could be a saber-toothed tiger, there could be a short-nosed bear that's gonna eat you. So, like, evolutionarily, we are hardwired with this animalistic instinct to avoid the unknown. But everything you've ever wanted is in the unknown. If you're in a 9 to 5 job and you want to build a multi-million dollar business, well, you can't keep following the known to do that. You have to venture into the unknown. But we're literally hardwired. Our brain, our limbic system is hardwired to stay in the known. So if you want to do more, if you want to get unstuck, you literally have to have enough conscious energy and will to fight human nature. So I always tell our clients we have these two voices in our head. I call it human animal and human spirit. And like, I think every person has heard these voices before, right? Human animal is that voice that wants you safe, it wants you comfortable, it wants to prevent you from harm. And it always tells you, like, do this, it's more realistic. This is the smart thing to do. I think it disguises itself as the smart decision from what I've noticed, right? And then there's this other voice in your head that is often much quieter. And it's just telling you like, no, you were meant for more. No, you were meant to go do this thing. But that voice doesn't have a ton of energy behind it. It's quite calm, it's quite quiet. And if you have all of this loud shit yelling at you in your head, like, don't do that, you're gonna die. This is not the thing to do. There's a short-nosed bear over there, there's a saber-toothed tiger over there, right? That's the easy voice to listen to. And so, how do you learn to stop listening to that animalistic voice and start listening to this higher level, what I call human spirit voice in your head? And we all have both voices. I think a lot of people see someone like you or someone like I, and they're like, well, you don't have fears. These things don't come up for you. I am just as scared and worried and anxious as every other person. I've just gotten really good at taking action from the voice in my head that is the human spirit voice. And that just comes from a lot of practice doing it, like paying attention to listen to that quiet voice and allow this yelling, screaming voice, like, don't do that. That's scary. You're going to die. Allow it to scream and yell, but go, I'm not making my decisions from you today. We're going to go talk to this one over here.
60 days ago, my wife and I were sitting in the living room having a conversation, and we decided we were going to reach out to a real estate agent and just temperature check what would our house be worth, because we
Yeah.
felt like we were going to move to Montana, and neither of us had ever been to Montana before.
Sounds very similar to how I moved to Costa Rica, by the way. So
I,
I
I was
already
going to
like
say,
this
I
story.
bet you that was setting the foundation for you. And so, 7 days after that conversation, our house was sold. We
Yeah.
literally spoke to an agent within a day. She came out. She said, your house is ready to list. You don't have to do anything. The house was listed. They took photographs 2 days later. 3 days after that, the house, we had three offers, house was sold. So, a week after that, we're sitting there. We're like, holy crap. Okay, I guess we're moving to Montana now. So now we needed to go to Montana to see if we like it. I share this because before we hit record, I said to you, man, I have got so much on my plate right now because I'm literally living in boxes because we're moving next week. The moving vans come
Yeah.
and we don't know where we're moving to yet. I don't have a house in Montana. I have two children, an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. I have a wife, two dogs. They're 15 years old. Everyone needs structure and stability. And I don't know what to tell you. My wife and I should be losing our everlasting minds right now
Yeah.
because our kids most certainly are, because every question is, do we have a house yet? And we just haven't found what we want yet. And we're not prepared to settle. 2 days ago, we were talking to somebody about renting while we build, and the house wasn't up to par. And we said, look, we'll rent it. It's considerable expense, but we want the carpets replaced because these are hot. And they're like, no. So we said, well, we're out. I'm not settling. And my kids are like, but we need a house.
But
Like,
dad,
can
please
we
keep
just
us
get a
safe.
house?
We're going to die. Yeah.
And so I would love to know from your vantage point, because people can hear us talking about this and some of them are going to have judgment. I totally get that. Some of them are going to be like, that's awesome. And I want to be able to do that. And some are like, I could never do that. And I want to bring everybody in on the journey.
Yeah.
So, what is the actual process you use step by step? You mentioned we've got these two voices and we have to listen to them. What do they sound like to somebody who's never actually slowed down to ask, what is the voice? What is it telling them? I want you to, like, in minutia, walk them through how would
Yeah.
you become comfortable, because you said you became proficient at it, but break it down for us.
I think the first thing to understand is like when you first start doing this, you're going to suck. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna think you're listening to your intuition or human spirit, but you're actually acting from a place of self-preservation rather than self-actualization. And to that, I would say the first part is like, you gotta look at this like a big kind of experiment and practice. If it's a muscle, like the only way that you're gonna grow the muscle is by doing it and practicing it more. And that triggers so many alarm bells for so many people. And I think my first thing to say to that is because I think everybody always wants to make the right decision. And I believe that's probably one of the biggest things that holds us back as humans from truly progressing to our true potential is we want to make the right decision. In the desire to make the right decision, we hesitate, we hold ourselves back, and all that hesitation breeds doubt. Doubt breeds fear, fear breeds more hesitation, breeds more inaction. Right? So I always tell our clients the only way to fail is to not act. It's to be indecisive, not make a decision. Because if you make a decision and it's the wrong decision, you can fix, I mean, not 100%, but you can fix almost all bad decisions with another decision after it. If you go to Montana and it sucks, well, you can fix that.
Mhm.
Like, you can move back. You can do something that fixes that problem. So we did the same thing when we were moving to Costa Rica. I think I came down here and I spoke at a mastermind, and I was here for a total of 5 days. And my wife and I have traveled the world for our work and everything that we do. And we've always been like, "Man, it'd be really cool to live here, but," and there's always a but everywhere we go. But then we went to Costa Rica, we're like, "Man, it'd be really cool to live here. Fuck it, let's do it." And 5 days is all it took. And we weren't trying to move, we didn't want to move, but we were just like, it felt really right. And we're like, "If this is a mistake, we'll learn and we'll move back." Right? And so I think giving yourself permission to go make some mistakes in your decisions, I think is the first step to it. Because I think everybody has this, I got to get all the decisions right. I got to make everything perfect. But the reality is in your process of trying to make it perfect, you hold yourself back from making any of the decisions or doing any of the things that you want to. And that's really the biggest failure. So once you kind of give yourself permission to like go make a mistake, because in the end, I'm trying to build this muscle of learning how to listen to that human spirit voice in my head, then you can actually start to go practice it, frankly. And what you mentioned is, what do they sound like in your head? The easiest way that I can describe it is exactly what I said. It's like the majority of the voices in our head are quite loud, they're quite energized, they're filled with emotion. And from what I've noticed, having tried to practice this for the better part of a decade here, when the voice is loud, when the voice is energized, it's filled with fear or energy or longing, or it can even be positive emotions. It's filled with desire and need, right? Normally that's coming from human animal. When it's just kind of a quiet, calm, like when we were down here in Costa Rica for the first time, for us, it was just like, it wasn't like a, oh my God, we should move here. It was like, we should move here. And it was just a very calm, centered, grounded idea.
Yeah, and it's a knowing. I
It's
call
a
it a
knowing, it's a
knowing.
deep
Yeah.
knowing. And I've just noticed the intuition tends to be very calm, centered, and grounded, but to that point, it's a knowing. And then when this voice is energized, normally that's coming from human animal in some way, shape, or form. And so you just kind of practice starting to make those decisions. Now, for me, I think the other belief that I've always had that is quite paramount to this is I'm a big kind of Eastern spiritual philosophy fan. So I've studied a lot of Vedic philosophy, Buddhism, Kabbalah. And in every single one of these philosophies, thousands of miles apart, thousands of years apart, every single one of them kind of comes back to the purpose of life. The purpose that we are on this earth is to learn and to grow. And the best ways to learn and to grow is to lean into the things that are uncomfortable for you, challenging for you, right? Growth, by definition, I think John Maxwell says growth by definition is uncomfortable. They're synonymous. You can't have growth and comfort in the same thing. So the more uncomfortable you are, the more you are growing. And so if the purpose of life is growth and expansion of consciousness, whatever it is you want to consider it, then the more uncomfortable I am, the more I'm growing. And so for me, one of the biggest things that I noticed, one of the easiest ways to distinguish this voice was frankly, what's the thing that scares me the most? What's the thing that, like, when I think about moving to Costa Rica from my amazing little life on the beach in Encinitas, does that bring up some shit for me? And if it does, that might be the thing that I actually need to do. And this is so illogical from most people's vantage point because you're literally doing the exact opposite what all of society would tell you to do,
Mhm.
right? I'm literally doing the things that scare me, that make me uncomfortable, that make me think I'm going to die. But in that process, I end up growing personally more than I ever could. And I end up also accomplishing things that I never thought were possible because of it. So if you're having trouble like distinguishing what's the human spirit voice and what's the human animal voice, well, most of the time, the human animal voice is trying to keep you safe, comfortable, and give you a life of ease. The human spirit voice will challenge you. It will make you uncomfortable. And when you make those decisions, you will have to face fear. You will have to face discomfort. And oftentimes, you will have to let go of the desire for ease and comfort. And so I just started leaning into that to practice it.
I want to speak into growth and discomfort for a second, but I want to give our audience, again, just another way of looking at this because I'm always listening to somebody when they talk, thinking, what is the audience thinking? What are they asking? And what objection would they have? And
Yeah.
what I want to ground is that this doesn't mean everyone has to quit their corporate job. This doesn't mean
No.
everybody has to move to Montana or Costa Rica or move without a house in 2 weeks. And like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about challenging the areas of your life where you want to grow and expand. 5 years ago, I think it was five, it could have been six. 5 years ago, my wife came to me and she said to me, she's had a recurring theme her whole life where she wakes up and she's naked and it terrifies her. And in the morning, she wakes up and she is like sweating bullets. She's like, oh my God, it was the worst fear. And one day we were talking, and I said to her, babe, I think you need to be naked in public. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, I think if you were to, under your own terms, go somewhere, pick a resort, walk out on a beach naked, and realize you're not dead, like the world is still going to be there, what would that feel like for you? And she was like, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. And then she went quiet. And then she sat in her mind for about 30 minutes and she said, I'm doing it. She was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. And I actually never thought she would. And then my fear came up
You're like,
of, oh
shit,
my
why
God.
did I suggest this? This is a
I was like,
terrible
this
idea.
is the dumbest idea. And so that my own insecurities came out there. But she did it. And I want to take like the perversion out of it and speak into the reality of this. My wife wanted to be an author and she had written 3 books that all sat on her desktop.
Mm,
I bought her a publishing, like self-publishing deal where everything was handed to her. She just had to submit it. She wouldn't submit it. It still has never been used. She had a dream to quit her corporate job as a vice president of a large billion-dollar brand to start her coaching business. She wouldn't do it. She had all these dreams and goals. And when she walked out onto a beach in a resort that was a beautiful, luxurious place, nothing freaky about it. And it was like this side of the beach was clothing optional, this side is normal, family friendly. And she just got to make the choice. Okay, I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right. And she turned and she said, I'm going to do this. And it was the most terrifying thing she'd ever done in her life. I was equally terrified. I was like, this is so bad. What am I doing? And then I saw my wife change. And she changed because she realized the scariest thing was actually freeing. She never needed to do it again. It's not this thing where all of a sudden now every weekend she wants to go and find somewhere to go and walk around. But what I want everybody to ground in is she left her corporate job, she wrote her book, she became a best-selling author, her income exponentially expanded. Why? Because the fear of the clothing was represented in the fear of allowing people to see her
yep.
vulnerably through her book, through her speaking. And I think that's what you're speaking into, Xander. And so my pivot now is to take everything we've just spoken about and I want to bring it into your wheelhouse. You help people grow, you help people scale and find purpose driven businesses. Everyone that's listening here has a desire to do something where they leave the world a better place. And I see so many people that are stuck at a $10,000 a month income or 20,000 income or a $40,000 income, and they just don't seem to break free from that. I
Yeah.
would love to know what is it that you see that holds people in that? Because I would argue that's a fear in and of itself.
So honestly, the biggest thing that holds people back is exactly what you just mentioned. By the way, I love that you did that with your wife because one of the things that we teach our clients is when I first started my business, I did something, I called it my big cojones action. And my first year in business, again, I knew there's a famous Jim Rohn quote, to have more, you must become more, right? And then so if I wanted more, I had to become more. And to become more, that means I need to grow. Well, if, like John Maxwell said, growth by definition means discomfort, then if I wanted more and I wanted more quickly, then I need to get more uncomfortable faster. And so every day for an entire year, I did exactly like we were talking about. I did the scariest thing that I could think of. And it was irrelevant whether it was business related or not. It was just what's something that literally scares the shit out of me today. And some examples of them. The first one was I quit my job. The next one, I was a big fan of Jack Canfield and all of his books, the Chicken Soup for the Soul book, Success Principle. And so one day, like I think the third day after I quit my job, I picked up the phone. I Googled Jack Canfield phone number. I picked up the phone and I called his office. I got a hold of his director of operations and I was like, hey, my name's Zander Fryer. I just quit my job. Can I come hang out with you guys? And 30 minutes later, I'm on the phone with his CEO. 10 minutes later, I'm on the phone with Jack Canfield. 10 minutes after that, I've got a flight out to Arizona, go hang out with him and his team for 3 weeks. Like, these are some of the examples. I called an ex girlfriend at the time and asked for feedback on our sex life. I'm an introvert. And so there was a lot of simple things like every day I would make sure to give a compliment to a stranger, just stuff like that, where I was like, anything that would scare me, I just started to do it. And to your point, it started to break my attachment to comfort and started to help me realize like I can have all of these fears and none of them are actually real. Like, yeah, they're a fear and they're designed to keep me safe, but every time I face one of them, something great happened. And so it actually taught me the opposite. Every time that I do something in opposition of a fear, something good comes from it. And so one of the things that I've realized, we've helped over 1,500 coaches build six-figure, multiple six-figure, and seven-figure businesses. And I love asking my clients, what do you feel? Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're at 10K per month, 20K per month, 30 or 40K per month. Every human has this deep-seated fear, and it seems to hold most of us back from getting to the next level, whatever plateau we're at. When I ask our clients, what do you think is the biggest fear that holds people back? Almost unanimously, the biggest answer is the fear of failure, right? It's the fear of failing at whatever it is they want to do. So you said if they're stuck in a 10K a month job or 20K a month job, they're afraid of failing in whatever this new thing is. And that's actually not true. So I always ask, okay, let's say you wanted to build a coaching business. Let's say you wanted to build a multi six figure, seven figure coaching business. And you're afraid that it might not work. You're afraid you might invest in yourself and spend a bunch of money and a bunch of time and a bunch of energy and it's not going to work. And you're afraid of failure. Well, let me ask you this. If I took that coaching business and I put it in a little black box and you could fail at that business over and over and over and over and over again, but nobody could see it until you failed and failed and failed until it started to work. And then once it started, because we all know that you have to go through failure to get to success. Everybody knows that. It's not uncommon. Everybody knows that now. But what if you could fail over and over and over in this little black box until it worked, and then you took it out of the black box? And I asked that to everybody, and everybody goes, oh my God, yeah, sign me up for that. That sounds perfect. I'm like, so what? So you're not afraid of failing. You just failed 1,000 times. You're not actually afraid of failing. You're afraid of being seen failing, just like you mentioned for your wife. You're afraid of putting yourself out there and people judging you and criticizing you, and that showing that you are not worthy. This is one of the deepest seated fears in our human psyche because it's closely tied to the emotion of shame. So, if you ever study Dr. David Hawkins and the transcending the levels of consciousness, the lowest energetic emotion that we can feel as humans is shame, which again makes sense if you go back to tribal man and woman. If you were socially ostracized, like if you did something shameful to the group and you were socially ostracized, you'd be kicked out. Well, now you can't fend off that short-nosed bear or that saber-toothed tiger. You're basically dead, right? This is why shame is such a low energetic human emotion that it's just above death. And in fact, when you do study suicide, it is the largest cause for suicide. People are actually afraid of shame more than they're afraid of death. And so everybody always asks me, they're like, Xander, why can't I just get myself to take the action? It's so simple. I know what to do. Well, the answer is you're literally facing a fear that is so strongly programmed into your brain. At times, it is a stronger fear than dying. And so that's the thing that actually holds us back. It's this fear of being seen, it's this fear of being criticized, it's this fear of being judged, this fear of being ashamed of whatever we put out there and it not being worthy. And so that's one of the biggest things that we have to work on with any entrepreneurs is how do we overcome these deep-seated fears of being judged, being criticized, feeling ashamed? And part of it is through rote mechanical repetition of doing the things of putting yourself out there and being seen and being judged, even when it scares the shit out of you so that you realize you're not going to die.
I want you to give another tool or exercise that you would give. Imagine for a moment you're coaching the audience, and every single person that's listening to this is so fearful of the shame of failure because I think you so
Yeah.
beautifully articulated everyone's emotions around something. It's like we don't want to fail, but we really don't want other people to know we failed at
Yeah.
something. And that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so, if we were going to have the repetition, which I think is phenomenal, what could be something else that we could immediately implement into our day as a
Yeah.
tool or a tactic that could support us in starting to take that action?
There's so many fun ones. So my wife was actually the queen of this. Whenever she felt that she was kind of holding herself back, she would just go lie down on a sidewalk in public. Just lying down on a side. It's simple. It's super simple. But like anything that draws people's attention to you because you look like an idiot is perfect. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. But when we were first dating, every now and then we'd just be like walking to dinner and she'd just lie down on the sidewalk. First of all, I'm embarrassed for her, right? But it's like, it's simple stuff like that. I have another buddy of mine that every time he gets onto an airplane or gets off of an airplane, he does air lunges on the airplane. So he puts his hands above his head and he's got his backpack on and he just lunges up and down the aisle to his seat simply because he knows that everybody on the plane is going to look at him like a complete idiot. Right. So there's a lot of things that you can do to just overcome just basic ideas of feeling ashamed and being seen in public that don't necessarily have to be you getting completely naked and going on a beach. One time I remember this was during my first year, the first Halloween, I was invited to go speak at a conference in Tennessee and it was Halloween. And so the thing that came to mind was, well, I got to wear a Halloween costume on my flight. Right. So I literally dressed as a banana. So I have a full banana suit. And I went through TSA wearing a banana suit. I flew on that flight wearing a banana suit. They pulled me aside because they didn't know how to deal with it. And so I had to get searched. And so there was this whole thing. But, anything that you can do, it can be very simple. Anything that you can find that just makes you uncomfortable. You're like, this thing scares me, but I know it's not going to kill me. Just go do it. Another one of the exercises that we love to have our clients do because it makes them face all their fears around money and asking for money. We call it the $5 challenge. And so what we have them do is we just have them go up to 20 strangers and ask them for $5. And my favorite part about it that we do that really helps reprogram your brain, if you're listening to this and you have any fears around asking for money or asking for your worth as an entrepreneur, so many entrepreneurs and so many coaches specifically have this issue because they feel like if I'm asking for money, I'm taking. They feel like it's a zero sum game, right? If someone pays me, then I am taking from them. They are losing, I am winning, right? And to combat this, I always ask them, like, do you have an iPhone? Right? Rudy, do you have an iPhone?
I do.
When you bought an iPhone, did you go like, "Damn you, Tim Cook and Steve Jobs for taking my $1,000, like, screw you"? It's like, no, of course not. You willingly gave them your $1,000 and you got this phone and you're like, "Yes, got my phone. This is great. Let's go." It's a win-win. Apple gets paid, you get an amazing tool that you wanted, right? So in a transaction of money, there's both sides end up higher. Both sides end up with more value than there was before. And so what we teach our clients is go ask 20 strangers for $5. And here's what I want you to do is I want you to get like $20 in ones, right? And we teach our clients to fold the ones up into like cool little shirts so they can, looks like a cool little origami $1 shirt. And so they go ask for $5. And anybody that gives you the $5, you give it back to them with a $1 bill rolled up as a shirt. And so what happens is now you want to go ask people for money because you know that you're going to give them more value back. But you still have to face your fears of going out there and asking people to give you $5, and it makes everybody super uncomfortable. I've probably done that exercise maybe a dozen times, and it still makes me uncomfortable to do it. But every time I do it, you're like lit up afterwards. I think one of the things I always hear from people, they're like, Xander, I feel like I need more motivation and more inspiration so that I can go take more action. And I always remind people, like, you have that completely backwards. When you go take a scary action, your brain releases this beautiful cocktail of norepinephrine and dopamine, which gives you liquid motivation and courage. So it's like the action comes first, the motivation comes afterwards. And so what happens is you go do this scary thing, and afterwards you feel like you're on top of the world. And then you just want to go do more shit like that. So whatever you can do, find a little thing to do in the beginning of the day that makes you uncomfortable. I'm a big fan of cold plunges. I don't know if anybody else does cold therapy, but like I've been doing it for 7 years now. And I will honestly tell you, there is not a single morning that I go out to my cold plunge and I'm like, yes, I can't wait to cold plunge. No, that shit is freezing and it hurts and it's uncomfortable every morning. But I go do it. And directly afterwards, I'm like, I can take on the world.
I have a 74-year-old mother who came to visit, and I put her into a cold plunge at 38 degrees or 39 degrees, and she was in for 2 minutes. But when she got out of the cold plunge, she was standing in my kitchen, and she's screaming, and my mom is a quiet, petite little woman, and she's going, "Whoa! Whoa!" She's like, "I can do anything." And I was like, "Mom, you are high as a kite right now." Like,
Yeah.
just literally the chemical dump in her body was so profound. And it was a beautiful example of what does it look like, because we get accustomed to doing it, but to see somebody do it for the first time and what's possible on the
Yeah.
other end of that.
And it could be getting into a cold plunge, or it could be something as simple as like what it was for me. It's like, when I would head to the gym in the morning, if there was a stranger in the elevator, I would just give them a compliment. That alone got my nervous system riled up enough that when I did the thing that scared me, it triggered the flush of norepinephrine and dopamine. And by the way, there's a part of your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex that every time you do one of these things, doesn't matter if it's quitting your job or it's just that simple compliment to a stranger, it grows. It's a muscle. It's
Beautiful.
scientifically proven. They can measure it. The more often that you do this, that part of your brain grows. And that part of your brain is closely associated to human willpower and consciousness. And so, literally, every little one of these things that you do, whether it's gigantic, like selling your house, or whether it's small, like giving a compliment to a stranger, if that scares you, it grows the same amount. So just go do a lot of these little things, and it makes it easier for you when you get to the point of like, yeah, I'm just going to sell my house and we're going to go move to Montana.
Mhm. I love that. Jen Gottlieb, she walks around Miami with pizza after she's gone out for dinner, offering random strangers in her building. And we're talking about multi-million-dollar apartments
Yeah.
and the quality of people walking around there. They don't need a piece of pizza. She's walking around saying, "Would you like a piece of pizza? Would you like it?" And she always gets these looks. And so someone's recording her do it, and she calls it her rejection series. And I love it because she gets
Perfect.
rejected 90% of the time.
Yeah. But the one person that takes it, they're probably new best friends after that.
Yeah. She just is flexing the muscle.
Yep.
So I would love to speak into a little bit as we bring today's episode to a close, like specifically, who do you serve? How do you serve them? And how could we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we help coaches. I've been working with coaches for about 8.5 years now. So whether you're any type of transformational coach, so life coach, health coach, relationship coach, spiritual coach, career coach, business coach, we've helped around 1,500 coaches build six-figure, multiple six-figure, and seven-figure businesses. And we take a full comprehensive look at it. I think when it comes to building a business, and I love that you understand this, it's like, yes, you need the marketing and you need the sales and you need the delivery of an amazing service and an amazing product. But underneath all of that is who you are as a person. Right. And so I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart. And part of the reason why we've been able to do this for so long and get such great results is you could give the right strategies and the right tactics to 90% of people, but they won't be able to get results if they can't get themselves out of the way. Right. So, my background being psychosomatics, deep spiritual work, about 50% of what we do is the marketing, the sales, the delivery mechanisms to make sure that you're getting great results. But 50% of it is really working on the individual to help them become a rock star entrepreneur. So we've got different levels for different coaches. If you're just starting off, we've got what we call our launch program, which is basically designed to help you get your first handful of high ticket clients within the next couple of months. We've got a year-long mastermind for coaches that are at the six-figure level and want to get to 20, 30, 40K per month. And then for our clients that are at multiple six figures or 500,000 that want to go beyond the $1 million mark, we have a program for that as well.
That is incredible. Well, I'm going to tell you, there are so many people that listen to this podcast who are purpose driven, but also come up against the fear of rejection, which you've so beautifully spoken into today. They come up against the worthiness to actually ask for the offer. It's not even the rejection. It's not even the receiving. It's literally they just like, I don't know who's going to pay me. Am I
Yeah.
worthy of that?
They reject themselves before they even get rejected.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they've worked through it, they don't know how to structure anything. And God knows I would have paid you almost anything when I started my business for somebody just to tell me, this is how you make what you do look pretty. So I love that you do it. And again, I just want to encourage our audience to look a little bit more into you and some of the work that you do. We're going to add obviously your website and Instagram and
I
etc.
appreciate it, man.
Your book, best-selling book, all into the show notes for everybody to be able to grab a copy, find out obviously more about you and how you show up out and in the world. But I want to ground something for the audience for a moment. And that is that at one point in time, he had to make a decision. And not all of us have a profound slap in the face. And so, condolences to you for the loss of AJ. And what I love about you sharing that today is that you took what was so profoundly painful and found value and meaning in it, turned that value and that meaning into not only helping you grow a multi 8-figure company, but you've helped other people move through that. We speak into the Empowered Life podcast that you have the power within to be anything. You've come here prepared to be the person you came here to be. You just have to be that version of who you want to be,
Mm.
but we get stuck. And you're helping people so beautifully navigate it because your life prepared you for who it is that you've become today. From my heart to yours, I want to say I love you, brother. You're a freaking stud. And I'm
Love you
so
too,
grateful
man.
you
Thank
came
you.
onto the show. And if there's one last parting message you would love to leave our audience, man, I'm going to leave the floor to you.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think the last thing that I would say is I think we all deeply want success in life. We want more happiness. By definition, success is more than the average. It's more love, more connection, more freedom, more impact, more income. And if you want more, by definition, you can't keep following social logic, right? You can't keep following normal logic because social logic, social rationale will lead you to a normal life. And so I want to invite everybody to act a bit more illogically. Just test it out. Test it out for a little bit. Test it out for 30 days. Go do some illogical stuff and see what happens, see what comes from it. And if you run your life like that, like a little bit of an experiment, like I'm going to go do some different stuff and just see what happens, you'll find quite quickly that being illogical is probably the most logical thing that we can actually do. So just go play around with it.
I love that so much. Live an illogical life. And to the audience, information in and of itself is absolutely useless unless you take it and put it into action. And so I am going to challenge you to 365 days of living an illogical life, doing crazy things, drawing attention unnecessarily, intentionally to you, so that one day you're going to wake up and realize that everything you ever wanted was outside of your comfort zone. Zander, brother, I love you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. To you, the audience, I will see you next week. Have a good one. Bye. If this episode gave you clarity, peace, or a perspective shift, hold on to that. And here is how you lock it in. Subscribe so that you keep building momentum week after week. And if you're the kind of person that believes a good message should travel, please leave a review. Reviews aren't just ratings. They're signals that help this reach the people who are ready for it. And then share this episode with somebody you love, someone you lead, or somebody that you were rooting for. Links are in the show notes so that you can connect with me online and on Instagram. Now go out there and take one beautiful, bold, and aligned step and make it count. I'm going to catch you on the next episode of the Empowered Life Podcast.